Lucas, do you want to start? You're on the kind of the far left. Do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, my name's Lucas, as you've heard. I am a student, a computer science student, and I am working on trying to make a project for do-it-yourself haptic gloves. The goal being not necessarily the highest fidelity gloves, but more the most budget and easiest to reproduce solution possible.
Very cool. And this is a 3D model of part of your project. Is that right?
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, what Lucas has done is very cool. We can definitely dig into it a bit more later. Joe, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hey, everyone. First, before I talk about Haptics, I want to say how inspired I am by Lucas and what he's doing. We're pretty much the exact other end of the spectrum. We are probably the most expensive and the highest fidelity glove you can get for enterprise use. But the thought that there are Lucases out there kicking all kinds of ass, inventing shit at low cost so the world can use it is pretty inspirational. Our glove is great for virtual reality and robotics and super realistic touch sensation, and it's not going to work until the world understands what's possible with haptics with projects like what Lucas is doing.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Ryan?
Hey, everybody. My name is Ryan Origin. I'm head of interactive at Wooger. I've been in haptics since 2015, and currently I help with product development and content development and DSP and a number of other functions here at Wooger. And I'm very glad to be on this panel, and I think haptics are awesome, and it's great to talk to a bunch of other enthusiasts.
Perfect. Alex?
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Milland. I work as community manager for Haptics. Haptics is a haptic wearable device company best known for their vests that has really shifted into the consumer market. So lately it's been all about providing consumers with something affordable yet high quality that they can use in the games that they already love. I'm a gamer myself and always have been, so I am stoked about everything that we're doing, and it is a pleasure to be here with all of you.
Awesome. Great introductions, great panel, super excited. I'll kick off with the first topic and just see where it goes from there. We can kind of start maybe with Alex, since you're on the other side this time. The first topic I want to touch on is, I think, one of the unique challenges that you all face similarly is developer integration. You know, if you don't get integrated into the right apps, no one can really do anything with your hardware. Alex, you want to tell us a little bit, and then the rest of you, about how you approach developer integration, how important it is, and how you've gone about it?
Absolutely. So I'll start by saying it's insanely important. VR as a whole already, is kind of known for having some friction and not exactly being easy to jump into. And anytime you add anything additional to that experience, like a haptic wearable, that extra friction is going to be noticed by a lot of folks. So anything you can do to make the process as simple and as straightforward as you can, you absolutely should do. When we're not able to get developer integrations like we like to, sometimes we'll have somebody develop a mod or something like that, but then it requires an extra layer of installation to get it to work with the game, and a lot of people get turned off by that. So developer outreach and developer integration is absolutely huge and pivotal to what we're trying to do at Haptics. I personally do a lot of developer outreach for Haptics, and I think being a gamer and being someone who is passionate about the use case of the product really helps, because when I reach out to a developer, I'm someone who plays and loves their game, and I'm like, listen, your game could be so much better. All we got to do is plug some code into it, and we actually have some amazing developers on our team that work hand in hand with developers as well. And we offer that as a resource whenever we're reaching out. We'll say, hey, listen, we've got a couple of guys, let's get two of our guys, boom, let's put our heads together on this thing for a few days and bang out an amazing integration. So, primarily has been outreach on like socials, like Discord and Twitter, you know, like kind of like grassroots, just like reaching out with open arms and being like, hey, listen, here we are. This is what we're trying to do. Do you guys want to get involved in this? And the response has been great. We have gotten tons of developers, especially from indie studios, who are more than excited to become a part of Haptics and, you know, get their hands on a vest so they can start using it. And it's been really good. So we've had some luck in that aspect for sure.
Very cool.
Hey, Eric, thanks for joining us. Hello.
I suppose it's my turn now. Hey, everybody, Ryan again. We're in a fortunate situation here at Wooger for a number of reasons regarding developer outreach. Our previous product was a multi-channel haptics product called Vest Pro, and that had a full-fledged SDK and API. But our current iteration of Wooger is a fully audio device. And the benefit to that is that we believe that the audio implementation and the sound design and the overall audio presentation of a given title is best decided by the developers themselves. So our product just taps into the audio stream that's already there. And for VR, that includes the spatialization and panning, etc., to have a totally one-to-one, natural, realistic experience in haptics because we utilize the audio signal and nothing else. Upcoming platforms will have new and exciting bells and whistles that I can't necessarily divulge here, but we understand that developers will want to have another level of control beyond the audio implementation because our haptic devices work in such low frequencies. It doesn't make a ton of sense to be adding extra low frequencies to your audio stream, so there are things in development now that will allow for new platforms to do exciting stuff. But for the time being, we are in a very fortunate position where if you want to play Half-Life Alyx or Valorant or anything else, you just plug the device into that experience, set the levels the way you like it as far as the headphone level versus the haptics, and you are having an experience as the developer intended.
Very cool. Joe and Lucas, maybe you want to add something here?
Yeah, I'll add quickly that Haptics pivoted away from consumer applications and games very early in our existence to enterprise applications, so that changes the game a little bit for us. That said, it's critically important to have outstanding developer relations, developer tools. We have invested heavily in our SDK to make it easy for our enterprise developers to work with us. We have an Unreal Engine plugin. We have a Unity plugin. We have an API based on C++ that companies that don't want to work with Unreal Engine or Unity can use as a bridge to their engine. We have tons of documentation. We have tons of starter environments and samples and that kind of stuff. And all of that stuff is what makes our customers feel really good about how Haptics is thinking about making it easy on developers so that they can build our tech in and integrate our touch feedback into their industrial applications.
What about you, Lucas? Are you even at the point where developer integration is relevant to you, or are you just not there yet?
So yeah, I'd say we're just almost at the start of where that is becoming an actual like big part of effort that we're putting into the project. I would say, like, since this project is only like 5 months old, like originally I wasn't expecting developer integration to even be possible. Thankfully, I'm really fortunate to have a lot of resources as far as my TikTok and now my YouTube that's really growing, and I have access to be able to spread a message to a lot of people, some of those people including developers. And also, currently, we just released version 0.2 of our driver, which now brings finger tracking compatibility with the gloves to pretty much any glove that works with Valve Index controllers, basically just emulating the way that Index controllers work. So the finger tracking has been really easy. The haptic integration, like most of you guys, is mainly the biggest trick. So mainly what we're looking into right now is starting with developer tools for some of the game indie developers that are in our Discord server. And then eventually I'm planning to use, sort of the resources that I have with me to try to reach out to as many developers as possible. But mainly the goal right now is making it as easy as possible to integrate the tech that we're working on.
Awesome. Those are great answers. Eric, since you just joined, do you want to maybe quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Eric from Haptics. So we build fundamentally the Unity for Haptics. It's a unique software stack that allow developer and hardware alike to plug into a high fidelity haptic renderer and abstract the complexity of developers to implement haptics. So we are a no-code solution for haptics, as well as hardware manufacturer, to having an ecosystem which is functioning, where they can think about building great hardware and not investing resources to create verticalized SDKs. We collaborate with several haptics companies like Manus VR, like SenseGlove, like many others, to empower their developers to deploy, thanks to Interhaptics, on multiple platforms and having unified haptics asset without having to compromise the high fidelity, quality, and ability to deploy quickly.
Awesome. One of the questions I'm most interested to hear from you guys about is, we'll use Woozr as an example here, Ryan. I'm looking up at your reel up here. This is a reel of their product. I'm noticing not necessarily seeing it in the context of VR. And so the question I'm curious about from everyone is, in the haptics industry, is VR kind of the tip of the spear, the driver of the industry, or are we seeing more growth and more exciting opportunities in these, adjacent fields like gaming and simulation?
I suppose I'll start it. I think that haptics is a super important part of VR, particularly when we're talking about, I don't know really how to differentiate, but we call ourselves audio haptics in that we are entirely audio triggered. The things that are being done by the other companies on this panel are absolutely crucial to immersion, like haptic displays and textures and force feedback, and these are all like absolutely instrumental to the growth of VR and immersive haptics. And we'll have something to say about that in the future as well. But also I'm an audio engineer. I've been making music since I was a teenager, and I've been a sound designer. And so I look at this from an audio perspective. And for me, having worked at other audio haptics companies in the past and now with Woozr for over the last 3 years, we believe that it's a way of enhancing the immersion of anything, right? So that's why you're seeing the various videos of our previous products being used in non-VR contexts. And so, haptics was interesting for VR in the early days, as I'm sure many of you recall. Like when I got my first DK2, many of the experiences didn't even have audio. Right? So there's no using haptics if there's nothing going on the audio spectrum. So now we're seeing AAA quality audio coming from even indie experiences. So it starts to make a lot more sense to have an audio haptic style device integrated in that way because the audio implementation is already there. So also you're going to have a great experience. I mean, I spend half my time in my Woozr vest playing PC games, not in VR. Like I spent a bunch of time with Valorant recently, and that has some of the best audio implementation I've ever heard. And I felt like I had a sixth sense playing that game, because of just a simple audio implementation going into the haptic device. So I think that it is a crucial part of both audio haptics and the wider world of haptics in VR and instrumental, but I think that our product and products like ours have something to say in a larger space.
One of the opportunities that Haptics sees in the future is absolutely the PC gaming market. One of the things that I've noticed, it's insane when I think about it, but it's like, controllers have had haptics since the Rumble Pack with Star Fox 64 and Nintendo 64, and since then PlayStation, Xbox, everybody's console gamers have haptics, right? VR gamer, their controllers, they have haptics, but PC gamers, keyboard and computer, like there's nothing, and there's some people who spend their whole lives playing some games, like you got your like Counter-Strike players or your League of Legends players, like that's all they're doing, but they're completely missing out on a haptic experience. And we would absolutely love to help bridge that gap and help more PC gamers get into the world of haptics and kind of connect to the worlds that they're in. That being said, to answer the question, I do think that VR is 100% the driver, right? Like the driving force, because VR, 360-degree immersive environments, it's amazing. And when you're playing something like a shooter, for example, and you are being shot at from all directions and your head is on a swivel, relying on something like a red arrow indicator to like tell you where damage is coming in is not really enough when you're immersed in an environment like that. A couple of bullets come in on my 6 and before I know it, I'm dead. So the haptics in a 360 space are like, it's a no-brainer, so I do believe that virtual reality is 100% driving it, but we see huge opportunities, of course, in other sectors.
So, hey guys, when we started, the name of our company was Axon VR, and we got a nasty letter from a company that makes scary weapons for police, who said we should reconsider the use of that name. And we were looking for a new We were looking for a new unnamed company. We were looking for a new name, and we're really glad we hit on Haptics because we realized we wanted not just to be the touch feedback for VR company, but the sort of realistic, immersive touch feedback for all platforms kind of company. And since then, we've discovered two businesses outside of VR where touch feedback is critical. The first is robotics. I mean, it is fascinating to me how powerful robots become when you control them from a distance and you have realistic touch feedback on the operator's hands. You can get dexterous robot hands across any distance to do incredibly advanced, complex things, and that is powerful. So we're working very hard in that area. The second, we had Jeff Bezos try it famously a couple of years ago, and he made an hysterically awesome, funny gesture wearing our gloves, and it really has inspired the robotics world. And the second thing is the use of touch feedback on surfaces all over products, whether it's, as I heard you guys talking about, keyboards and mice, but, someday you'll have, touch feedback conveying information through, through your vehicle that you ride in and in theme parks and, really on almost any surface. I'll give not magically, but Leap Motion, which merged with Ultra. I always get them next up. They're now Ultra Leap. They've done a great job trying to integrate some of this mid-air touch feedback into products. We'll be bringing our feedback to those kinds of applications over time.
Very cool.
Yeah, I would say with my project, since it's such an early project, there hasn't been a lot of that going on. I would say one thing that people have reached out to me about and people are experimenting with is using my earlier prototypes, which are just the finger tracking prototypes for motion capture. So a long time ago, before I had it working in SteamVR, I used like a Blender Python script that I wrote. And then a lot of people saw that and that got like the mocap community kind of all excited about it. So there's a lot of people interested in cheap motion capture gloves for animation, which I think is pretty cool.
Very cool.
I mean, from my perspective, haptics is of course driven by virtual reality, as we see in the panel here, but I think it's restrictive to say that it's just going on in VR. There is a ton of things that is going on in haptics outside. Joe, you mentioned automotive. I know for sure we are working with some of the automotive OEMs to provide haptic design systems, and I know that fundamentally most of the high-end cars are already equipped with at least 20 haptic actuator today, and they are going towards multiples of them, both in the screen, in the steering wheel, and in the seats to give you contextual awareness and information. So I dare to say automotive is a great market for haptics, where there's a lot of understanding, and it's much more mature than VR. So there is much more business-like. So we already had a couple of iterations of products, and it's great because you're really seeing to come out what makes sense. Another place that we are seeing that haptics is making strides is, as you saw with the PlayStation controller, with the new PS5 adaptive trigger technology, which is force feedback systems that you could not really find anywhere else for the time being, as well as the voice coils actuators, which are a breakthrough in haptics, which are really high bandwidth actuators. So virtual reality is a great application for haptics because there is a lot of exploration of multi-actuators and really what you could do with like the haptics you're doing over there on how manage the evolution of haptic animation and how you convey a lot of immersion over there. But there is another thing that is going on that I think will be really impactful in this industry is with the increased bandwidth of expressivity that the new actuators will allow games and user to leverage. And I think we are just tipping the iceberg over there. And I fully expect in the next 2 years to have many more interfaces with high bandwidth actuators that will allow a crazy expressivity from a creator point of view, and also a much better experience from a user point of view. And we are thrilled to be in the middle of all this. We cannot announce anything for the time being, but we are really are empowering next generation haptics interface with Interhaptics to streamline fundamentally their deployment.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, guys. I got a few more questions, but I want to open it up. So I'm just going to ask one more, and then we can kind of break out and make it a bit more casual. And last question is just, from a business perspective, if someone wants to start a business around a VR hardware accessory, what advice would you give that person? What are the tricks of the trade that you guys have learned there?
That's such a tough question. That's why you're getting silence. Does somebody else have to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute. We're pretty far along. We've been at this for 8-9 years now. Haptics has. And I can tell you there are a few things we've learned. One is the demo is everything. It's absolutely everything when it comes to hardware. It's almost like, the Common Era and BC AD, it's like before you have a demo versus after you have a demo. And I mean a demo, it's not like software where you can make little tweaks and tear all the code apart and make fixes. Hardware really there's a good enough line, and you need to get it to the good enough point with your demo to convince people that you've got something special. So work on that. Put all of your energy into that, and spend nights and weekends getting it to the point that it's good enough, and you unlock every door not every door. You will unlock so many more doors than you expected. So that's one piece of advice. Another piece is work with people who understand hardware, or at least can tolerate the weirdness of hardware. Hardware, again, is not like software. So, not everyone can tolerate how ugly it looks at first. Not everyone can tolerate, how long it takes to get it right. How many iterations, how when the engineers say, don't worry, we can make this smaller, lighter, better, the software better, we can improve the quality. I've learned to believe them. And so if you work with people on your team and investors, who understand that, it makes your life a whole lot easier.
That's a great answer. I can speak from the most consumer-facing product on this panel in that we made something, our Woojr products, that works with what people already have and what they're already into. There's not much of a buy-in apart from getting a Woojr haptic product. So, and it's indicated by the success of Arch crowdfunding. Our previous crowdfunding campaign was, $300,000, $400,000. The most recent one that we just did for Woojr Edge was 30 times that. And that's not an accident, right? People want a way to interact with the things they care about immediately and in a more complete way. And so it's weird for me to give this advice with such incredible technologists on this panel, but I would say from our perspective, made something that meets people where they already are.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't even know how qualified I am to answer this. I kind of sit somewhere in between being a consumer and being involved in the business of these things. But if there's anything that I've learned from what I've done with Haptics, and if there's any advice I could give someone who's considering starting a hardware company, is I would thoroughly look at what everybody else is doing before you commit, because I know of a company or two that make a product that I know that is now obsolete because of other things, and they're like not even out with everything yet, but it's already been made obsolete by the use cases of other products that are cheaper and easier to get your hands on, so I would look really hard at everything that everyone's doing and make sure that what you're doing is something that is truly needed and that there's a space for it. Otherwise you might lose your ass on it.
Stories of battle scars, it seems. It's tough. Putting out hardware is tough. Hardware is hard.
It is very, very hard, and Lucas is making it look easy, but it isn't easy.
Sure.
It is
not easy.
Quite difficult, and you will go through some very difficult times. And I'll be happy to tell some more stories and hear what you guys are thinking of inventing, and giving you advice based on that to the extent I can be helpful, because I've been at it for about 5 years with Haptics, and we've raised $20 million, mostly from small, and medium-sized investors over time. So we've been through the wars and can help.
What if I want to build a headset?
You can do
You
it.
better have a really, really better mousetrap for a headset if you're getting into that space. That is a saturated space. I would not recommend it unless you have something more special than words can describe at this point.
I would never want to compete with Valve on anything.
I mean, I'm Eric here. I'm based in France, so there is a company in France that is building a headset and started last year that is Lynx. And the way that they're positioning themselves is by filling a market niche where there was no one else, which is about mixed reality, or at least pass-through mixed reality for, how can I say, portable pass-through mixed reality. And the way that they're managing to deliver that is by having access fundamentally to a technology that no one else have, because they patented that it's their own technology. So from a headset perspective, you really need to have a moat or a differentiator that you can defend, and you need to be sure that this is a value on the market before even thinking about starting that. But if you have that, you can go really fast and really far and really far away and basically defend your niche and defend your moat simply because you are able to capture that customers as a first. So from a headset perspective, you really want to take the technological way and being sure that what you have is unique and meets the market expectation before even starting. But there are these stories, it's just that they are not so much shown, like Pico in China, not far long ago, took the way of enterprise first platform, and they have nothing special beside a great policy for enterprise. And that's a value in a part of the market. So market is evolving really fast. And if you are smart enough and you are able to identify a niche before it's coming, you could have a chance to make a headset company.
For sure. One of the things I wondered there too is just, yeah, I know you need a tremendous amount of resources. You need to get it right. You need to have differentiation. But I also see 9 out of 10 headset companies are not trying to innovate at all. I mean, even the Pico, right? Like I just saw they announced yesterday, the Pico is basically a Quest 2 that's coming 8 months later. It's like the same spec, the same form factor, the same refresh rate. Like it's almost the exact same, right? And you have like companies like Dell and Lenovo, like none of those like downstream OEMs are going to make anything new. So sometimes I do wonder, like, there's so few teams actually trying to innovate there that if you put the right talent together, it seems like sometimes something can be done.
Yeah.
Someone else want to ask a question, maybe? Tony,
the
Robin,
question is,
Michael?
Even if the Pico is a copy of the Quest is only the base Qualcomm XR the demonstrator model in a nicer package, isn't it? I mean, they didn't really add anything that Qualcomm didn't have in their
Sure.
developer thing. So it's also a copy of what Qualcomm puts out. So Qualcomm puts out a standard VR headset, and everybody simply uses it and puts his own brand on it. So Oculus isn't really doing anything than others are doing.
And the Pico is also using the XR2 reference design, which is why they were able to, to follow so quickly.
I mean, I don't understand why nobody followed so far, because I mean, there are so many handset manufacturers like Xiaomi or Huawei who could have put that thing out in a kind of rip-off fashion and make money out of it. And there would be so many people who would actually use it, because so many people don't want the Facebook login.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, the value of all of that is not in the hardware.
I'm concerned that there wouldn't be that many, though. Like, I really don't think Joe and Sally Walmart give a shit about Facebook. You know, like they just want to get a headset that they can play Beat Saber on for as cheap as possible. And if I just don't see anybody competing with Oculus unless they're able to get their price close to what the Quest is at. Like, most people are already fine with their data being taken. Most people, you know, they don't think about all of these things. You know, there's we're a niche community as it is, and there's a niche within that is unwilling to participate in the Facebook stuff, you know. So I don't know, man. I think it's going to be really, really hard to compete with Facebook in the standalone market right now.
I've heard an argument that maybe not for individuals, you know, like you say, Joe Walmart, but from a business perspective, if you, let's say, are, you know, a business that's thinking of taking on, I don't know, a training simulation, or you're going to enact some aspect of your business in VR, and your workers are going to need headsets to do that, can you require your employees to have a Facebook account?
That's a really good point.
So I've heard that as an argument that basically, if something else swoops in that doesn't have that kind of, you know, privacy worry, that, yeah, maybe it wouldn't be able to hit the same price point. Maybe it wouldn't be able to, you know, get the Walmart person sales, but from a business perspective, it might do a lot better, because even if the upfront cost is higher, you know, if it provides the infrastructure to, like, manage all the headsets and connect them in different ways, and then not have this weird personal tie to it, then it might be able to take off in that way.
I mean, you're describing the business model of Pico. It's what they do, basically. That's their value prop, and that's exactly why they're growing a lot. I mean, in Europe, we have customers that have a full-fledged training solution that spent like 200, 300K on it, and they cannot deploy it because they cannot allow Oculus Quest in their organization. And that's just a fact.
Even so. If a company would have started 6 months ago putting out, if the Pico would have been 6 months earlier, they would have swooped up the whole German market, because nobody can buy a Quest in Germany, simply because it's not allowed.
Huh. Well, I guess for enterprise, right? But the problem with Pico on the consumer side is that they don't have an ecosystem to tap into for software and things like that, right? Like, they don't have the Steam library of games, they don't have the Oculus Store. HTC has Viveport, and Pico is kind of like dead in the water. Like, they don't have access to all of that stuff. So on the enterprise side, 100%, I agree entirely, but I can't help but feel like at the end of the day, the consumers are still the ones who drive a lot of decisions, and they're still the ones who are creating awareness for all of these things and hype, you know. And it's like, when somebody's announcing a new headset, all these companies aren't throwing their hands up in the air. It's all the VR enthusiasts, it's all the people who spend the time doing this stuff that are like reporting on it and talking about it and getting excited about it. So I mean, you know, I really do speak from the consumer perspective most of the time. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see something like that for enterprise. You know, Pico come in and save the day, especially in Germany. That would be fantastic. And I certainly don't think Facebook has any reason to have companies make all their employees make profiles and all that. That's a huge mess.
To be fair to Facebook, I think in the Oculus for Business program, it does not require each employee to have a Facebook account.
Yeah, but it's prohibitively expensive.
Yep, that's
is
totally
it? Okay.
true.
The pricing's different. Okay.
Someone in an earlier Spatial Ape meeting, someone was there who was actually trying to build a business out of this. I'm not sure what he did. I think it was some theme park thing or something. And it was like, it was so expensive that they simply couldn't afford it to have like, say, 50 headsets or so, because I think you're well above $1,000 for each headset, and then you have to pay constantly for Facebook. So that's really, they didn't really want. I think they don't really want the business model. They really want just the consumer model, and they just have
the data that is going to be generated by millions of hours of Oculus use is going to be worth far more than the $1,000 they would get from an enterprise headset.
Totally.
Yep.
Michael, for everyone that doesn't know Michael is the developer of VR Workout, successful, VR fitness program, and I think one of the best examples of an open source program that actually has good traction. Michael, do you think there's a path to somehow opening up an open source hardware platform?
Oh, that's a tall order. I mean, aren't there already open source? I mean, I'm a bit following those tracking things like the Stonks trackers and the Smile tracker, where people are trying to build hardware tracking solutions for full body tracking, and they're trying to do it open source. So Stonks is trying to do it open source. I'm not sure if they will actually do it, and the other trackers are actually open source. And so I think I mean with your gloves, you're showing how open source works as well.
Yeah.
So having a community and building I mean, if you build hardware on your own, then you probably need a community, because you just can't do it on your own. And in that case, open source may be a good way to get around all those little details. Like if you build a hardware thing and you have to put a lot of money into actually getting it right. But if you have a lot of people doing it and making all the mistakes that you would make along the path, it's probably a way to build hardware. But I'm not sure if I'm qualified to talk about hardware and open source.
I mean, if the leading headset is going to continue to just be built off of the latest Qualcomm reference design, then maybe just having a really good open source operating system would be enough.
I mean, I don't think actually at the moment. I think it's a big problem for Pico. I don't think it's a big problem that they don't have the games, because first of all, there are a lot of people who are using the Quest for SteamVR, so that will be the same for Pico. So it's basically just a wireless headset. So you have a few games on your standalone headset for like most of people will play Beat Saber and Pistol Whip and whatever. And I'm pretty sure that almost any of those big games can simply run it on any other headset, because there's also an Android-based headset if you have the Unity export, so that's not really that big of an issue. Actually, Pico contacted me a while ago to if I want to port VR Worker to their headset, and they actually offer to help you. So they give you developer help to actually help you port it to their headset. So I don't think that's the big of an issue, because I mean, we have now 25% of headsets on SteamVR are actually Quest. So basically, most headsets are Quest, and if that would be simply another headset, which is also wireless, wouldn't make a really big of a difference.
Sure. One of the like the layers that I would worry the most about is just like all that low level software that Oculus is getting really good at, like Guardian, hand tracking, like keyboard detection. There's 100 different little background services around computer vision and graphics management and stuff that are going to just be really hard to catch up with.
And that's what we have visibility into.
I mean, consider that 20%
of stuff that we don't see.
I mean, 20% of Facebook employees are in VR today. So there are more than 10,000. So you have 10,000 engineers or people that are working in VR, and you don't know what they're doing. And I think you put together all of the other, let's say, hardware companies in the world in VR, they don't match this number of people. So.
I'd like to hear what people in the audience are doing with haptics. What are you thinking about when it comes to haptic feedback for your applications?
I don't want to be the only one who talks.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but Michael, you do have the best example though, because fitness is a perfect fit for haptics.
Yeah, so the haptics gloves, I don't think that really will be used for VR, because not for VR, but for VR workout, because you need the range, the flexibility if you're doing push-ups and if you're doing sit-ups and all the stuff. So, and I think the current generation of haptic gloves would be too fragile to actually have this interaction with, because what I'm calling a VR workout is it's a layer of VR over the real world, because you're interacting with the real world. You're doing push-ups on the floor, you're jumping and you're doing sit-ups and you're changing positions. So you're always touching something, and I think the haptics gloves would be a problem. With the vests, I think it would be quite different if they allow the range of motion you need for those exercises, because since VR workout is hand tracking based, you're missing the haptic feedback that people get from their controllers. We're trying to get around that simply by audio and by visual cues, but there is definitely a difference, and people would like to have the option to feel that they actually hit the target and not just see it. So I think for that it's definitely something. And there is a Spanish company, I think, who's also doing a kind of vest which is based on those AMS, those electric stimulation things, which is also used in those training. Fitness training systems. I think that could be combined nicely with fitness app. With the Haptics, I'm not sure how flexible you remain when you have the vest on. If it's more like for a static environment, or if it's really for doing intense movements. I'm not sure.
You can move pretty good in there. Move pretty good. I basically, I mean, I've gamed hard at. It's a little warm. Yeah, you know, the most recent iteration of our vests use a breathable mesh material, but I mean, you know, you do anything in VR long enough, you start breaking a sweat, you know, and putting anything on top of that is only going to make that a little warmer and a little bit sweatier. There's a detachable inner lining that covers the actuators that you can take off after an intense session and wash, so that way you have something detachable and washable, which really helps. But I've played really intense games like the Crisis Brigade series, which is it's basically like Time Crisis but put into VR, where you're ducking behind vehicles to take cover, and there's so much movement in that thing. I was dripping sweat, but I did not feel hindered by the vest. So I would say something like, I don't know, I think it would work nicely. I think you could, especially the X16, if you're doing sit-ups and stuff.
Yeah. So that would be the second question. How is it if you're lying on the floor? Would this impede the vest? Would it be in danger of getting damaged, or?
Ours has no problem being on the floor.
Yeah, I would say there is a chance of doing something that you don't want. The battery pack is between the shoulder blades on the vest back there, and if you're slamming your shoulders back on the ground, that's not going to be good for it.
Yeah, no, that's not an issue, because we're trying to keep all movements as safe as possible. So we are trying to have everything designed in a way that you have the least chance of hitting of harming yourself or anything. So that could work.
You know, one thing I would love to see a lot more of from developers when they're implementing haptics is kind of to maybe start to think outside the box a little bit of just an interaction with the environment, and more of ways to gain information. I've thought about haptics as a use case for accessibility, you know, maybe someone who is hard of hearing puts on a haptic vest, and now you're getting all kinds of input from the experience that you were not normally able to get. And there are examples, maybe something like proximity based, right, where the closer I get to something, the more it starts to react, you know, stuff like that. I would like to see people kind of start to think outside the box a little bit, rather than just simple, oh, I touched something, now I feel it. And I would love to see people find more ways to use that as a method of conveying information, kind of what he was mentioning earlier, where everything will be a haptic, you know, surface, and if it's buzzing really hard, that means keep walking or something like that, you know. I see a lot of opportunity in that way for haptics, and I would love to see a little bit of innovation in that sector.
Yeah, so
we're lucky in that we have object-based workflows and game engines that allow for that now, just with audio implementation. If I need something to vibrate when I get closer to it, I can just put that in the game engine and just do audio. We're super simple.
Yeah, so our idea was to actually for the Haptics Vest. I looked at the Haptics Vest, but I haven't really got the time to get more into it. Was to actually use it to tell the person if the position they're in is incorrect. So to push them in a direction. So you're now not standing upright enough, or you have to get more to the left or more to the right. So that the vest would be actually the trainer that gives you the information how to change your position to conform what you actually want to do.
That would be awesome. I think that's a great use case. You know, the magic of the Haptic stuff is in the patterns, right? The X40 has 20 motors on the front, 20 motors on the back, and they fire in patterns that simulate things happening. So if it's You know, if you want them to move to the right, you could like almost do like a pushing sensation from the left to the right, and you can like feel it going that direction, you know, and that kind of thing. Like it's all about the patterns with Haptics. You know, one of my favorite interactions is not getting shot or blown up or exploded, which is like the first thing people often go to. But it's like dropping something in a bag, like taking an item and dropping it over my shoulder and like it like falling down and landing, you know, like the pattern to the action is, in my opinion, is where the magic in the Haptics Fest is.
Do you have any multiplayer experiences where someone touches someone else? So because I could see this as a trainer, that the trainer actually tries to touch you on the shoulder and tell you now you move there, and that you can feel actually where he touched you, or like he gives you not a back rub, but he tries to get you in the direction. So do you have anything in that direction?
Yes, absolutely, and that's something that developers can do. You know, there was a mod that had that working in VR chat, but VR chat lately has just been putting the kibosh on anything modded in that program, so it's been really hard. Neos VR is a social application where people are able to add haptics to anything. You can add it to a sword. I put it through you, and I can feel, you know, you can feel the pattern that I'm drawing on you with that thing, and the hands and everything else. And then we have a modder who did a Population 1 mod for Haptics, and he incorporated the hand touching. Just a modder. He's not even the developer. He just got access to the code and plugged it in there. So that is 100% easy to do. And just a little bit of a pro tip: less is more with the haptics when it comes to touching. You know, like your brain fills a lot of the gaps, and ours are vibrating actuators, right? So like when you touch someone, you don't like vibrate them when you touch them with your hand, you know? So if I'm going to do something like that, I turn the sensitivity down a lot. So that way it's almost just barely firing, and that my brain likes that more than like a constant buzzing when your hand is like touching my chest.
I think it's a really important question about collaboration and multi-users when it comes to haptics. One of the things that the Haptics team worked the hardest on for this new release that we call the DK2 was the networking of multiple users in a single VR environment, and the ability for the physics of objects to feel correct, haptically speaking, in the same environment. So you can have multiple users in the same VR scene, and they can touch the same objects and both feel them at the same time, and even throw objects from one to the other. And when they land, they feel realistic, which sounds easy, but was very hard to do from a physics and haptics perspective. And we've got that working in the new SDK for Haptics. So we think that's really going to be important for collaboration and training with trainers and trainees, and design reviews, and all kinds of use cases where you need multiple people, not just waving at each other and saying hello to each other and pointing at each other, but actually physically collaborating the way we do in real life.
It's interesting because I guess right at the start of the pandemic, or before the pandemic, VR arcades began to be a thing, and you would get lots of people coming together in the same room and enjoying VR experiences together. Did any of your companies start to provide hardware for any VR arcade companies? I know there was a couple of companies that went under pretty quickly at the start of the pandemic, but I'm imagining that will increase again once things clear up a little bit, hopefully. Can you see that being a big market?
Absolutely, 100%. Haptics started in 2015 as a B2B company that did not have consumer use in mind, especially because at the time, you know, software is few and far between that supports it. So, you know, by hooking them up with the software and the hardware together, that like creates the experience for people to go to and do that. It's kind of funny, actually, the switch for Haptics into the consumer market actually happened right before the pandemic. So it was like almost like, I don't want to say good timing, but it was almost good timing for us to kind of switch gears a little bit, because at that point, like you said, people immediately stopped going to VR arcades and all of that, and everyone was kind of focused on what they can do at their own house. I don't know where everybody else lives, but I live in Arizona in the United States, and I personally am feeling huge alleviations of the effects of the pandemic. People, you know, are getting vaccinated, they're going out, they're doing things again, myself included, and I personally am looking forward to another opportunity to go out to VR arcade. And I've had a few people with VR arcades reach out recently, saying, hey, we're, kind of getting back up and running. So I think that VR arcades are probably one of the best things for the haptic community, because people are not often willing to spend $500 on a vest that they've never used before, but if you go to a VR arcade, have a great time with your friends, you realize how incredible of an experience that was. Now you're aware of haptic wearables, you understand that it's something that you can acquire, and you understand that it's something that you can't live without.
We had a lot of irons in the fire at Wooger prior to the pandemic, with a number of LBE traditional style VR arcades and more sort of produced LBE experiences, without getting too specific. I think that there are sanitation things to concern yourselves with the return of the VR arcade, and you have companies like Cleanbox that are attempting to address some of that stuff. Me personally, as a consumer, I can just go get a VR headset now, and I can go get one in a number of different contexts. So for me, the value proposition of going to a traditional VR arcade has kind of dropped post-pandemic. We'll see if the numbers bear out. However, on the flip side of that, we're working with a number of LBE sort of organizations that are doing something far past just traditional put on this headset and go to Steam, right? And you're doing it with your friends. And so on the one hand, we can get it as a consumer device just right now in any way. On the other hand, what is the LBE situation going to offer that I can't do at my house? And that's the things I think ultimately are going to be what gets traction, is rather than just going into a business park and playing Beat Saber for an hour for $30 or something, I think it's going to be more about, I want to go do a thing that I can't do in my house. That's just me.
Well, and for a lot of people, that will be haptics, right? Like, because they don't maybe they have a VR headset, but they don't have the whole shebang, and you can go to the VR arcade and boom, you're throwing everything on,
The small device we make is $99. So
yeah, that's not too hard to get.
Yeah, I mean, I would say as far as like, if you're talking like the full shebang as far as haptics, like I would say, like, especially in the beginning of VR, like my first VR headset was a Google Cardboard, right? It wasn't even Oculus DK1, right? So for me, like being able to, have the opportunity to go to a VR arcade and experience something that I couldn't experience myself is a huge thing. So like right now I would say, of course, that doesn't apply to headsets anymore. You can just pick up a Quest for $300. But I would say, as far as a lot of the emerging technologies like VR haptic gloves, like my project, I would say, for example, represents kind of the opposite of that, where you can't really go to an arcade right now. But I would say, 10 years ago, if I could have gone to a VR arcade instead of, getting a Google Cardboard and tinkering it with myself, I probably would have. So I like to compare kind of what I'm working on as the Google Cardboard of VR haptics, because it's, it's not necessarily the same experience you would get, but it's something where you would normally have nothing. And I would say VR arcades kind of represent the other solution to that, of having something where you otherwise would have had nothing.
Okay, this has just been one of the best conversations. We've been in here an hour, and so I don't want anyone to feel like they have to stick around longer than they're able to. So what I'd love to do real quick before we clear out is just go kind of left to right and tell us, what can we do to support you, and where can we follow you? You want to start, Alex?
Okay. Yeah, I'll start. So again, my name's Alex Milland. I go by Alex VR online. I'm Alex VR on Twitter. I'm Alex VR on YouTube. I'm co-host of a VR podcast called Between Realities, where we have weekly guests, and we do that live every Friday. And of course, I'm community manager for Haptics, where I manage their Twitter, their YouTube account, and all of that. So the Haptics Discord is definitely the place if you wanted to get involved with Haptics and talk haptics. Our Discord is popping. We have people in there chatting it up every day, and we have a lot of our developers that we work with in that Discord as well. So I would recommend going to behaptics.com, scoping everything out. Find me, Alex VR, on Twitter, and shoot me a message. I'll get you an invite to our Discord, and we would love for anyone who is currently listening and interested to come join our conversation in our community.
Hey everybody, Ryan Origin again from Wooger. You can find me on Twitter at Ryan Origin, and you can find everything you need to know about getting a hold of Wooger at wooger.com.
And once again, I'm Joe Michaels, the Chief Revenue Officer at Haptics. You can find Haptics on Twitter at Haptics. You can find us on LinkedIn. Those are the two platforms we're most active on. We also happen to be on Instagram and Facebook, and we even have a TikTok account we haven't used much. But we're an enterprise solution. If you can think of enterprise or industrial or government contexts where realistic, true contact haptic feedback can be useful, we would love to talk to you. Let us know. We love to talk haptics, but we don't have the time to do Clubhouse and podcasts and things. I wish we did. Props to the people who do. We're laser focused on making an enterprise grade product that our customers will pay a lot of money for.
Awesome. So again, I'm Lucas from Lucid VR. I'm on YouTube. Just recently started posting there, and it's been doing pretty well. TikTok, and then I also have a Discord community for people that are trying to build their own gloves. So if anyone wants to try to get their hands in a pair of gloves and build a pair for themselves, I'm always happy to help people. I talk with people all the time and help them build. And we also have a lot of people in our community that have built their own, that love to help other people about it. We also have a Patreon for those that want to support the project. And I'm always open to chat. My Discord tag is public, so yeah.
Hello, Eric here from Haptics. I'm the CEO of the company. So you can find me on Twitter with Eric Vezzoli. My name or the company is Haptics. You can find it on Twitter and or LinkedIn. So we just recently launched a clubhouse talking about specific for haptics. We do it every 2 weeks. You can check it out on Clubhouse. It's a haptics club. We have a number of invited people, like I hope Joe you will join, and in a couple of weeks. Then Alex was there, I think last week, hosted from a XR family. So if you're interested in haptics, do not hesitate to jump in. We have a number of people from automotive to smartphone haptics to whatever, any kind of usage of haptics, even sex toys and whatnot. So if you're passionate about the technology, jump in. And if you want to implement haptics into VR project, check out Haptics. We have a number of plans, and if you ping us with your project, we can help you to implement it with our support of our developers.
Justin, if you don't mind, I wanted to throw out one last thing. If you're interested in talking about using vibrotactile style haptics with your VR experience, or you want to talk about haptics at all, please don't hesitate to email me at ryan@wooger. You can actually click that button over there, I believe, and get a hold of me. I'm always happy to talk to developers about exciting, innovative projects, and maybe mundane ones too. So hit me up.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys, for taking the time and coming in here. I really enjoyed this chat, and hopefully, we learned a thing or two.
Thank you so much.
It was a great time. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.